So far, we've spoken about some of the requirements for the actual sin sacrifice itself. Today, I want to focus on the Holy Temple. We're going to touch on it a little bit, and then we're also going to ask the question, could Jesus have really been the final sin sacrifice? We also touched upon that in the past, but let's go into it a little bit more deeply. So the question is Jesus made this claim that he was the Holy Temple, and the claim is made that he was the final sin sacrifice. Now the question is what is the Bible, what does the Torah, the Tanakh, the Hebrew scriptures have to say about this? That is the question that we always have to ask. So if we actually look inside of Ezekiel, in the last 8 chapters, there is a detailed plan for the third holy temple that will be built in the future. Ezekiel was given this vision of how this temple would be constructed, so we do know that there will be a third temple in the future. A physical concrete temple. And there are other prophecies that relate to this. I'll read some of them. So Micah chapter 4 verse 1 to 2 says, "But in the end of days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow into it. And many nations shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." If we flip back to Solomon's prayer in 1 Chronicles chapter 8, we see that Solomon was telling God, when the non-Jewish people come to the Holy Temple, please God, hear their prayer as well. Though the Holy Temple was a specifically Jewish building, everybody was invited to it. It didn't matter which nationality you were from. Every person in the entire world was invited to come to the house of prayer, and that's very specifically what other prophets have to say about it. Isaiah chapter 56 verse 7 says it's going to be called a house of prayer for all peoples. "Even them I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be acceptable upon mine altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples." Now in Ezekiel chapter 37, we find out that this third temple is going to be the final temple. There will never be another one. It's going to be established for eternity. Ezekiel 37 verses 26 to 28, "And I will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My temple also shall be with them. Yes, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore." So we do know that there is going to be a third temple, and it is going to be the final third temple. It's not going to be destroyed again. It's not going to need to be rebuilt again. Now the question is what's going to take place in the temple? So the sacrificial system will be restored. And it says very specifically in Ezekiel chapter 45 verse 22 that the Messiah will bring a sin sacrifice on that day on behalf of himself and of the Jewish people. And it says very specifically that he will bring a bull for a sin sacrifice. Now, let me get this out of the way. The word used in that verse is the prince, and we generally interpret this to mean the Messiah. There are some people who have interpreted to mean the priest, and there will be some messianics who will come and say, oh, but it's not the Messiah who's bringing a sin sacrifice because he was sinless, it was the priest. But I want to point out that the New Testament says that Jesus is both the priest and the Messiah. So if you believe in the New Testament, you believe that the priest is the Messiah. So according to the Tanakh, there will be a rebuilding of the third temple. It will be a house of prayer for all people, and the Messiah will actually bring a sin sacrifice on behalf of himself, implying that the Messiah is a mortal man. He is not a divine being. He is a regular person who can also make mistakes at times. Now, tomorrow is a fast day, actually starting tonight, because the Hebrew day starts at sundown. So tonight is starting Tisha B'Av, which is actually a day in which we mourn the destruction of both the first and the second temples. And it is a day of weeping, of sadness, of fasting, of repentance. So there's a chance that I might not be putting up another video tomorrow or until next week. However, if I do, I would like to go more deeply into just a general, what is the Holy Temple? What was the sanctity? Why do we need another temple? We'll see if that's going to happen. And if not, I wish you a wonderful weekend.